We're going to talk a little bit about eating the right portion. And the reason why portion is so important is because too much of even a healthy food can potentially be more calories than you need and promote weight gain. So how do you know where to begin? Well, it's really interesting because there was a study that showed that people who were given larger bowls and larger plates actually consumed 16% more than people who had a regular sized plate. And how does this connect? Well, a lot of times the portions are extremely large when we take out or eat out at restaurants and in areas where we don't have control over the right amounts. So one good tool I like to use to help you identify the right portion and kind of eyeball the right way and the right balance to eat is something called the New American Plate. The New American Plate is a concept that was developed by the American Institute for Cancer Research. And you can learn a lot more about this whole program by logging on to their website, and they have tons of great resources on how to put the New American Plate to work for you. But to describe it in a basic fashion, essentially if you think of your plate, you want to have 1/3 or less of that plate come from animal protein. So as you see here, the example, that piece of chicken is on 1/3 or less of the plate. And the rest of the plate is actually filled with plant foods, healthy foods that have lots of good phytonutrients, antioxidants, and chemicals that help fight disease. So here you see a great serving of broccoli. It looks like it's some brown rice and some carrots or beans. So when you're thinking of your plate, try to use this concept and think, I want to make my plate the New American Plate. Another good way to think of a portion is if you're looking at a piece of chicken or a piece of meat, 1/3 or less of your plate, or if you're planning it out in terms of portion, it's always great to use the palm of your hand. The palm of your hand can help you to identify what a portion should be. So if you think of a deck of cards or the inner palm of your hand, excluding your fingers, that's a great way to identify what a portion of meat should be, about 3 ounces. If you think of your fist, kind of like the size of a baseball, that's approximately 1 cup, and that's about what the size of a serving, like say a grain, a starch, let's say some rice or some beans that you want on your plate. And then in terms of fruits and vegetables, it's usually about 1/2 cup if it's chopped, and a cup of, let's say, lettuce or salad or something like that. And usually with those foods, I don't necessarily make people stick to that as a minimum because they're so low in calories and so good for you that even if you had a couple of extra spears of broccoli or an extra bowl of salad, as long as it's not doused in unhealthy dressing, that's a great way to fit more lower calorie foods into your diet and good cancer fighting foods. It's really interesting to note that since the year 1960, the sizes of the average dish or the serving dish that we eat off of has increased by 22%. And that's what we're accustomed to. But believe it or not, for those folks who were eating off of the smaller plates in 1960, they didn't have to go back and fill up their plate to be equivalent to the size that we're used to eating, because that's actually the amount that we're supposed to be eating. A smaller plate does actually get you accustomed to a smaller appetite. So just kind of a concept to think about, and just be aware. Do you really need to go back for seconds? Obviously, if you're somebody who maybe has finished treatment and might need to put on a little bit more weight because you've lost weight, that might be an approach where maybe you do need some extra calories right now. Like that example we talked about in the beginning, energy balance, your energy in may not be as much as you're expending. And you might be more prone to weight loss. So in that case, you may need to choose some more calories. But for those people who are struggling with achieving and maintaining a healthier weight, here's where the energy balance comes in again. Try to choose that smaller plate and that correct portion to make sure that your calorie level is appropriate.
Is there an upper limit on an amount of nuts that should be eaten daily?
Yeah, that's a great question, and I'm glad you mentioned that, as I should have reviewed the portion when we were talking about nuts. think of it about a palm full. So if you kind of cup your hand and you kind of level off the top of your hand from the cup of your palm, it's about a palm full or about a quarter of a cup of nuts. So, you know, definitely nuts, because they have that healthy fat, are more concentrated in calories. So, you know, it's easy to kind of pop nuts, and you know, especially even though we don't want to eat them this way. A lot of times if they're salted and roasted, they have a great taste. But ideally, you do want to eat them plain, because then you don't have to worry about all the added calories and oils that are added in the roasting process. And you do want to stick to about that portion if you're adding it to, let's say, salads and oatmeal and yogurts and things like that.
Also, is there a limit on the amount of avocado? Is a half of an avocado a reasonable size serving?
Actually, what we use for avocado is about 1/8 of an avocado as a serving. So another great question, because once again, avocado, things like guacamole, are really easy and really delicious to eat more than we need. But if you kind of think of 1/8 of an avocado is basically, it's like a slice. Because avocado, because it has a lot of that monounsaturated fat, also, once again, can be concentrated in calories. So great healthy food, lots of good health benefits, but just be aware not to have too much.